Today, though, we are here to talk with Elaine. So, first of all, get your pom poms ready, Linda. First of all, we have two things. One, Elaine is at her 2-year anniversary in the Fictionary community. She's been a fabulous member, and we're super excited that she's been so involved in doing these events for us, and it's really wonderful. And the other, don't. Elaine has a book coming out April 24th, which we will put out in our email list so everybody can see it. And Elaine, the title is?
Love, Dryads, and Murder.
So Elaine writes romantasy. So when you see the cover, you'll see it's a romantasy cover. So Elaine's an author. She also runs a YouTube channel called AuthorTube, which I'll post the links for everybody. They're also in the bottom of the invitation for this event if you want to connect there. And she's going to share the process of how to create a book cover. And the reason we're doing this, so I have a book planned to come out in January, and I'm trying to share as much of the process as I can so everybody can learn from all my mistakes. So Brandi, who's here, Badgett, is doing my structural edit, and she's done 2 scenes live already. Pamela Hines, also a member of the community, is doing the copy edit, and I think next week or the week after we have a live copy edit session where I have no idea what she's done. She's just going to show it live. And today, Elaine is having a look at the book cover that I created on my own, not my skill set, just as a starting point of where to go with this book. And so Elaine is here as the expert on book covers. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Okay, so really quick, I guess to clarify, AuthorTube is the type of channel that I have. If you go onto YouTube and type in AuthorTube, you're going to get all of us because there's a lot of us actually. But yes, Kristina has put all of the links up on there so that you can check things out. Put a 1 in the chat if you plan on hiring a designer to design your book cover, a 2 if you want to buy a pre-made, and a 3 if you plan to design it yourself. That's going to give me an idea of where to focus. Okay, lots of 1s and 2s, some 3s. Okay, cool. That is good to see. All right, so regardless of what you're going to do, I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. Let's move that over there. And we're going to open this up. Okay, so this is the mock-up cover that Kristina made. Now, a mock-up cover is the cover that you are going to use to be able to express to your designer, or in picking a pre-made or in designing it yourself. This is going to give you that basis to start on. So what we've got here, I can get a little bit closer to it, there we go, is she's got different elements. And as we look at these elements, we can see wolves, we can see a golden retriever, we can see an eye, and we've got kind of a darker color palette. And then what you're going to want to do is to always, before you ever start a book cover, you're going to want to have your blurb. And I'm not talking Fictionary blurb. I'm talking your back cover copy or your Amazon description. You want to have that as pretty finalized as you can get, like minor tweaks that you're going to make, but the story idea is in there and it's done. So what Kristina has right now is a brother murdered, magic others covet, and no one to trust. And then if I come down here, this is her back cover copy. So it says the Golden Leash, and this is her draft description. A brother murdered, magic others covet, no one to trust. When Serafina Merrick loves someone, they die. In a world where the bond between humans and dogs deepens with every shared touch, the 20-year-old dog trainer finds her only solace in the unwavering loyalty of canines. But when she discovers her brother's death was no accident, she's desperate to find his killer. Terrified her brother died because he uncovered the ability to see into a dog's mind, Serafina sets out to find the culprits. With a shadowy organization intent on exploiting the human-dog connection, she fears the essence of the bond will be twisted into a weapon. Can Serafina protect the pack she loves? So after Kristina sent me this, this is the next important piece you're going to do. You're going to describe the experience that you want your readers to have. So I talked to her about, is this a darker book? Is this a lighter book? And we talked about how this is going to be a darker book. It's going to be focused a little bit more on that suspense, that thriller element, bringing in the paranormal magic, that kind of thing. That's a very different experience than if the book is a cozy book. That you're not going to have the same experience if we're talking about, oh, well, we're going to have puppies and the puppies are all going to come and gather around and we're going to look into the minds of the pup. That's not what we're doing. That's a very different experience. So we want to make sure that that is expressed in the book cover. One of the most important things that you need to remember is your book cover does not tell a story. Your book cover conveys an experience. So your book cover you don't want to say, well, I want my book cover to be this scene from my book. That doesn't sell books. What sells books is communicating to your readers the experience that they're going to have so that they either pick it up off the shelf and turn it over, or they scroll down, or they click on it on Amazon and they scroll down to the description. That's what you're going for. So if your book is a rom-com, you want to show them with the bright colors and the happy couple together or the illustrated characters. You're going to communicate that experience that way. If it is a thriller, you want dark colors. You want it to be able to show your reader that this is going to keep them on the edge of their seat. And we can do that through colors, we can do that through typography, and we can do that through layout. But we have to figure out what colors, what typography, what layout, that kind of thing. And we do that by doing what's called market research. And that's what we're going to focus on the most right now. So I'm going to, yes, okay, cool. So when you are doing market research, I'm using Amazon. You can do this on any retailer you choose. I know authors who are wide. And if you are a wide author, I do suggest you do this. They do this process through all of the retailers that they plan to list on. And that is a good thing to do, but we're going to stay with Amazon to keep it easy. Up here, I change to the Kindle store. So I don't just search on Amazon through everything. I actually hit my little scroll down here and I choose the Kindle store. Then I type in the main genre for my book. Okay, so mystery and suspense is the main genre for Kristina's book. Now we can niche down, and we are going to slowly do that. But that's the main genre, so that's where I want to be. And then I sort, not by featured, because that is what Amazon will do first. And featured means that you're going to see everybody who paid money to be at the top. That's not what we want. That's not going to help us. We want bestsellers. Okay, you don't want the people who paid money, you want the bestsellers. And then what you're going to do is you're going to start scrolling through this, and you only want to go through about the first 100. I wouldn't go further than the first 100. The first 50 is usually enough. And you're going to look at colors, you're going to look at layout, and you're going to look at typography and the basic style of the cover. So this first one, To Believe, this is what we call a photo manipulated cover. It's a cover that is used by adding photos on top of each other and making them look like one picture. So that's what this one is. And then the second one here, this is what we would call an illustrated cover or a graphic cover. It means that we've used vector graphics, SVG graphics, for those of you who are design savvy, and layered them on top of each other to create the image. You also can have people who will draw those covers. That is something, the illustration side is something that I did when I worked as a graphic designer full-time. I illustrated logos for tech companies. And so you've got all of these different options. And then this would be more of a typography based cover. It does have the image in the background, but the emphasis is meant to be on the typography and what you've done to the typography. So those are our three main styles of covers. And then you can have crossover among all of those different styles. But you're going to see that in mystery and suspense, I've got a lot of blue. I've got a lot of those darker blacks. I have a few instances where there's red. Got more red there. And most of them are photo manipulated covers. So as I go through, I'm like, okay, well, most of what I'm going to do, every now and again, you're going to come up with one. This is an illustrated cover. This was drawn by an artist. But most of what I'm seeing through here are those really dark covers. I'm seeing a lot of typography that's very sans serif. There we go. I do have words. They're sans serif typography. So what serif and sans serif means is serif. Let's see if I can find an example of serif in here. Serif is like Times New Roman, where it has all of the edges. Ah, here we go. So this is serifed. So let's actually jump in so I can show you a little bit better here. So in her mind, if you see the little hook on the I and the hook on the H and the lines underneath the N and the I and the H and the R, that's what we call a serif in design. And then sans serif would be, go back, basically everything else you see here. So the to believe, you see how there's not any extra lines on all of that. And then like if I come down here to Sins of the Falls, you'll see there's no extra flourishes to these letters. Okay. So when you're going through, these are the things you're looking at. You're going to make note of what colors do I see. You're going to make note of what kind of fonts you see. And you're going to make note of kind of the layout. Where do I see text? Do I see titles at the top? Do I see titles in the middle? Do I see titles at the bottom? Do I see people on the covers? Do I see buildings on the covers? What sorts of options exist in these top, let's see, what have I got here? Top 20. I think I've got 20 here. Yeah. You're making note of all of that. Then you're going to niche down. So this is mystery, thriller, suspense. So I've added thriller in there. It's not just mystery and suspense. Now we've got a thriller element. I've done the same thing. I'm in the Kindle store. I'm sorting by bestsellers. You'll see things change just a little bit. I've got more red. I've got a lot more red coming in. I still have my blues. My dark colors are still there, but you'll notice that we want to add in that thriller element. So the color that comes in is red when I want to add a thriller moment or a thriller element in. And then we still have, and then we also see that we're getting more people on the covers. So we still have the covers with the house and with the buildings and the item and the elements like inside the building. We still have a few things like that. But for the most part, the biggest change we've seen is red. And then Kristina's book has a paranormal element to it. You're gonna want to be kind of careful here. And I'm going to show you why. So I'm going to switch over. And you can see mystery with paranormal. We brought in a whole other set because most paranormal mysteries are cozy. So you need to actually know that as you're doing your research, because if you don't know that, it looks like this is okay. And I guarantee you right now, that kind of cover on Kristina's book is going to cause problems because that kind of cover says that it's a cozy mystery. Because it's light and it's dainty and it's whimsical and it's going to give someone who loves country gardening and mysteries a really wonderful experience, and they're not going to want what Kristina's got. We want to find Kristina's readers. So as you start niching down, especially when you get into things like paranormal, you want to make sure that you are very aware of your own genre. You're aware of the other authors who are writing like you. And the way you do that is reading. So you're going to want to make sure that you are reading in your genre. And maybe it's not that you're reading every book that comes out in your genre. Maybe it's just that every time a book comes out in your genre, you're looking at its cover, you're looking at its back cover description or its Amazon description, and you're going through and making sure that everything that is happening in your genre, you are at the very minimum aware of. Because if you just did what I said and you had no basis and understanding of what is popular in your genre and how other covers are created in the genre, then you're going to end up in a situation where you think that kind of cover works. And I mean, it's the Retired Assassin's Guide to Country Gardening. So it's still a mystery. There's still going to be probably death or like someone's, I'm thinking probably like Father Brown level Mystery for those, because I grew up with a mother who loved all of the British shows. But like that's what I'm expecting out of here. I'm expecting someone's going to die and that someone is going to come around and have to try and solve the mystery. And they're probably going to be really reluctant to do so because they're retired and they don't want to do this. And that's not what we're wanting with Kristina's book. But it does give us an idea of what is best selling when you put the word paranormal next to the word mystery. But we still see a lot of those darker colors. And then things that have changed is that we're starting to see more decorative fonts. We're starting to see more serifed fonts. So given that and looking at what's here, I would say the only book on this list of searching for mystery with paranormal that I would say would be close and that we could look at for Kristina's is this one here, The Forgotten Shadows. Everything else on this list does not convey the experience that I expect from Kristina's book. So this is how you do market research. This is how you find your comp covers, and this is how you figure out what needs to go onto your mock-up that you make. So when you make a mock-up, I'm going to switch back to Kristina's mock-up. Oh, did I close it? Oh no, I closed it. Okay, hold on. We're going to open Kristina's mock-up again. And then we'll switch back to it. There we go. And there. And then let's go back. Please let me share it. It's open now. I promise it's there. There we go. Now it likes it. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back in on her cover. So given what we saw in the market research, Kristina's actually done a really good job in creating this mock-up. She doesn't believe me. She's got those darker colors. So that's one of the big things is that we know that there are darker colors. We know that there were a lot of darker blues, those dark purples, a little less of the purple, but a lot of those dark blues. And so we've got that. We have text that is easy to read and isn't really serifed. It doesn't have any serifs on it. And then we have our images kind of placed together. This is the kind of mock-up that you can hand to a designer and they'll be able to look at it and say, oh, I can take this and run with it because it has all of those, all of the elements that they need to know that they're going to hit genre conventions. And so you're good with that. So how do we take all of that market research and actually apply it? So let's see, we're gonna stop that. Okay, cool. And then, excellent.
Elaine, before you go on,
Yes.
Shannon has a very interesting question. Website design needs to comply with font and color accessibility guidelines. Is this the case on book covers? I see many book covers where it's hard to read the title or author name due to font choices, size, etc. It's puzzling.
Okay, so a book cover, the rule is that it needs to be readable and legible. They are actually two different things. Legible means that you can see each letter individually, essentially. That's a really simplified way of talking about it, but it's the easiest way. And then readable means that it can be read. And so your book cover needs to be both of those things. If you're seeing covers that are really difficult to read, they're probably not made by a professional designer. That's the reality of the situation. I have met a few authors who I looked at their cover and said, that's not legible. And they said, well, I paid $200 for it. And I cringe. So there are designers out there. The way that you test for legibility and readability is you're going to print it off at thumbnail size. So you're going to print it off so it's only about 100 pixels tall. And you're going to hand it to someone who doesn't know you're writing a book. And you say, hey, can you read that? And ask them what it says. If they can read it, you're probably fine. If they can't read it and they don't know what it says, then you have a problem and it needs to be resolved. Now, if you're working with a professional designer, you go back to them and you say, this is not legible, this is not readable at thumbnail size. We need a different font. If you are making it yourself, then you know that you get to go back to whatever program you're using and you're going to pick a different font. If you are wanting to, so I'm gonna start with our number threes that said that they were planning to design their own cover. If you're planning to design your own cover, there is a whole lot of background design that I need you to know, and I'm gonna send you to my YouTube channel. There's a playlist on there. It's called Your Cover Design Toolbox. You're gonna start at the beginning. I apologize in advance. I hadn't done YouTube before this, and so some of those early videos are rough. But stick with me, the information's in there. Go through all of that because you need to understand things like layout. You need to understand color psychology. You need to understand font psychology. You need to understand how all of that works. And more than anything, you need to understand how to apply it to a book cover. And that's what those channels are, or that's what that playlist is for. And I continue to put videos into that playlist. So I'm continuing to talk about how design works. That's where I want you to start. We're going to talk about things that work well for that, but that's where I want you to start. I talk about programs that you can use. I talk about basic design principles. All of that information is there. And that's the best place for you to get going so that when you're creating your book cover, it actually turns into something that you want. When you're looking at pre-made covers, you're going to try and find something that is akin to the mock-up you've made. So what do you put on your mock-up? Well, you figured out what colors you're going to use. You figured out what fonts need to look like, what style of font and everything like that. You're going to take all of that into account when you're looking at pre-mades. And then you're also going to take into account what is going to represent your book well. You want to think of at least 5 things. Authors that come to me and say, I want to buy a pre-made, but I don't know where to start. I do have a video on where to look at websites and places to go for that for pre-mades. And that's a good place to go to find those pre-mades. But when it comes to what do I put on it, you need to have a variety of things that could be on your cover. So for Kristina, if she wants a pre-made cover, well, wolves are a good thing to put on hers. The dog is a good thing to put on hers. She has that eye on there. I would shy away from that just a little bit since it's not really the main focus of the story. Like the eye of the pack is kind of, or third eye of the pack is relating, correct me if I'm wrong, Kristina, is that relating to the humans who can see into the dog's mind?
That is correct. And also to
Okay,
the series.
there you go. Okay. So do you see how much she's conveyed though in that mock-up? Like that mock-up, it's not a professional mock-up. It's not a professional book cover, but she's conveyed a lot to me through that. So I wouldn't make the eye the focus, but I would look for covers that have dogs on them. I would look for covers that have wolves on them. I would look for covers that are set in a wintry setting and look kind of thrillery and mystery focused that match the covers I'm seeing in that market research that we did. So that's what it would be looking at. Let's see, Todd, I'm writing sci-fi thriller, which isn't a common combination. Todd, for you and for anyone else who's writing a mashup, I need you to pick the audience you want more. So here's a good example. My romanticities are romanticy comedies. I'm very specific to tell people that because I have lighthearted and stabby. Like, it's still a romanticy, but there is a lot of humor in my books. There's a lot going on. And for a while, I wasn't doing a good job of catering to the reader that I was trying to find because I was trying to find them in both the rom-com audience and the romanticy audience. And I had to pick. I had to decide who I actually wanted. And I wanted the romanticy readers because there are fewer rom-com readers who are willing to also read romanticy than there are romanticy readers who will also read rom-com. And so you've got to know your target audience. Who are you trying to attract? So if you're writing sci-fi thrillers, I'll be perfectly honest with you, Todd, I would focus on trying to get the sci-fi readers because your sci-fi readers are very happy to have other genres thrown in. Your thriller readers are going to be very particular. Any reader who prefers books that happen in our real world they're going to be very particular and they might not want something else thrown in there. Brandi, mine is a dark science fantasy thriller. Yeah, that's a hard sell. I'll be honest, that's a hard sell. But knowing who you're trying to reach and then making sure your cover fits that. So I recently went through, I had drawn my first cover. So I went through and I illustrated my first cover, and I was trying to follow what I was hoping would be a trend. There was an author who's had a designer create an absolutely gorgeous cover, and I fell in love with it. I thought it was beautiful. She had her do her entire series. They were these watercolor illustrated style covers, and they were gorgeous. And I really, really wanted those covers to take off and for everyone to do it. And so I thought, I'm going to do my cover in this way, and I'm hopefully going to see other people follow it. And no one else followed it. And this author is a big author, so her books sold well. Everybody knew who she was. Everybody loved what she did. And they all told her how much they loved her covers. But no one else did it. And so guess what I did? I got a new cover because no one followed that trend, and it was it wasn't going to work. And I want my book to sell. So I got a new cover, and it matches what did end up taking off in Romantasy and is currently selling books, and it sells. It makes it much better. So when you're working with a designer, because when you're doing pre-mades, that's what you're basically just trying to match your the experience of your book with elements of your book. That's what you're trying to do. So that's going to take a lot of effort and research and going through pre-mates. Like, it's just going to take time. They do tend to be cheaper. That is one benefit of that, is that it does tend to be cheaper. And if you've done your market research and you know your book really well, then it's going to make it easier to find a pre-made that matches. Most authors I know, though, they scroll pre-mades and they buy the ones they think are awesome, and then they write the book for the pre-made. So they find the cover that they absolutely love that inspires the story, and then they jump in. And they might have the designer change the title. Like, they might look at it and go, oh, no, that's not the right title, but that's the book. I know exactly what book goes behind that cover, and they'll do that. That's another wonderful way to get covers without having to pay a whole lot for them. So now let's talk about working with a designer, because I saw a whole bunch of ones. You're going to go to your designer, and if you're working with a professional designer that is an independent designer, then you're going, or works with a firm. So like War Books is a firm. Miblart is a firm. We're going to talk a little bit about Miblart and get covers because they're slightly different in the way you work with them. But any firm that's more like More Books, where you're paying closer to that $500 a cover range, that $300 to $500 a cover. With them, you're going to go to them and you want to have your comp covers. So in doing your market research, you need to have figured out what covers are most like the cover you want for your book. So the stories that are closest to your story, they obviously won't be the same, but you want to go with at least two. I always suggest that you go with three, that you have three covers that are close enough to your book and preferably released within the last 3 years. Because if you're saying, oh, well, the best book cover that's closest to my story, or the best story that's closest to my story, is a story that came out in 1972. That book probably hasn't had a new cover since 1972. That's a problem, because what sold in 1972 is not going to sell the same way it sells today. And so you're going to want to make sure that whatever you're pulling from is recent. The last 3 years, I wouldn't go further than 3. I know some designers are willing to go 5, and they're like, yeah, I can kind of make this work, but they're stretching it. Once you get to past 3 years, it's far enough along that it's going to start looking dated. Not that you need to redo your cover every 3 years, but if you're designing a cover, you don't want to design off of covers that are more than 3 years old. So you'll want to have at least 3 comp covers that you go to your designer with. If you're working with an independent designer, they will want to know what of their covers you like the most. So they will probably have all of your cover, or all of their covers highlighted in a portfolio on their website. So you'll be able to look through and see covers that they've made. They'll probably want to know which of their covers that they've made you like the most. Why are you coming to them specifically? That helps them know what style you're looking for as well. So you'll want to be able to tell them, these are my 3 comp covers, and then of the covers you've created, these are my favorites. And at least have one. I would suggest if you want to give them an ego boost, do 5. But at least have one cover where you're like, hey, this is the cover that I came to you for. I came to you because I saw this cover. I saw what you designed. I love this, and I think you can do what I need in a really great way. So you've got your comp covers, you've got the cover that the designer designed that you like the most, and then you're going to give them your back cover copy. So they will need all of that. An independent designer and is going to take time to sit with you and talk about what you want on this cover. They're going to ask you about what's in the book. They're going to want to know what elements are going to work for the book, what elements won't work for the book, that kind of thing. So they're going to take a lot of time to sit with you. That's why these covers, when you work with an independent designer, can be from $300 to $2,000, because they're going to sit with you and create something that is very custom fitted. Then you've got design firms. Some design firms, you take a step down just a little bit. So like More Books, MOOR Books Design, I think it is .com. They're a fabulous group. I highly recommend them. Slightly on the pricier side, but they don't sit down with you so much, but they do send a lot more iterations to you. So they'll start with saying, okay, well, let's pick the models that are going to go on your book. And so they'll either you send them the models you want, or they'll pick the models, and then they'll send that to you first before they've done anything else. And they'll say, okay, this is the pose that we have for the model that's going to be on your book. Do you like this? Does this work? Are we on the right track? And then you'll send back, well, no, actually their hand looks odd in this orientation holding the sword. Can we shift that? Or take the sword out. I don't want them holding a sword. Whatever it is, they'll sit and work with you on that piece by piece. They get each piece right before they move on. So again, reasons why you pay more for them, because they're going to spend a lot more time with you. Then you take another step down and you get groups like Miblart. Miblart is a very good price range to kind of have that individualized experience where they are going to send iterations, but they're not going to send as many iterations, and they're going to you're not going to work directly with the designer most of the time. Sometimes you will. It depends on how high up the designer is in their tier. So if the designer is just starting out at Miblart, you're probably going to work with their project manager, because their project manager is going to understand what you need better than the designer, and the designer is being trained to be able to work their way up. And it might have changed now, but at the beginning, I understand that that's how it was. And so you'll still get iterations. They'll still work with you through that, but you might have other people involved with you in that process. So you might have a project manager over that designer that's also going to be talking to you and trying to work through everything. And then you have a group like Get Covers. So Get Covers is a great option if you're designing your book cover and you realize you can't, and that it's not working, and learning software and learning all of the things is just not going to work for you. Get Covers will give you an ebook cover for $10. There is no catch, except that you have to know exactly what you want. When working with Get Covers, I have an entire video on this. When working with Get Covers, you need to go in with a mock-up of exactly what you want. Your market research has to be on point, because they will make you exactly what you tell them to make you. So Get Covers Miblart is the parent company of Get Covers, and Get Covers is how they train their designers to move up into Miblart. So you're working with novice designers, but that doesn't mean you can't get great covers. So if you look at any of my covers, and I can pull that up here really quick, my covers are with Get Covers. And so let me grab the one that just came out, or is about to come out. There we go. Okay, share. So this is the book that comes out on Thursday or next Thursday. And it's a fabulous cover. They did a great job. There's very little wrong with this cover. This took me a while to get to. This was not an immediate, oh, hey, this is a wonderful cover. It worked out so well. This is iteration number 7, I think, of a lot of back and forth. Okay, we need to shift this, we need to shift that. I had to send them exactly what elements from Shutterstock I wanted. So Shutterstock is one of the image groups that they work with, that they buy images from, image repositories. And so I had to go through and find everything I wanted so that they would use exactly what I wanted. Let's see, that's the size of it. Yes. Yes, Wilder, this is the size for an Amazon ebook, or for any ebook for that matter. But I got a really great cover from Get Covers, but it took the time and the effort to go through with them and figure it out. Now, the nice thing is that because I took that time and I went through and created a pattern with them, what I have now, let's see, let's grab this one and there we go. I want to switch, please. No, that did not switch it. It almost switched it. That one, that's what we wanted to switch to. I'm just going to show you yourselves. That's what I'm going to do. But I have a pattern now. So you can see this is a very similar setup. It's a different book, but it's a similar pattern. It's a similar layout. And so anytime I go to get covers now, I can say, hey, this is the pattern we've created. Let's change this. Let's change this. Let's change this. These are the images I want to change them to. And now I can move forward. And here's my next one. And here's my next one. And so creating, let's see, this one, where is it? And then switch to that. So once I had got all of the kinks worked out and I have a pattern set for them, that cover took 2 weeks. Because I went in and I said, this is the color background. These are the elements. Here they all are. This is my mock-up. I sent a mock-up so they saw exactly what I wanted it to look like. And then they put it into the pattern. And it went really well, and it went really quick. But starting that was a 3-month endeavor of working with them, going back and forth, making sure that they understood exactly what needed to happen and tweaking things with them until we got it perfect. And now I don't have to worry about it being perfect anymore, because I can go in and I can say, this is our pattern. And they go back to whatever designer I have. That's the other thing with Get Covers, is you work with a project manager. So I don't know who my designer is. I work with a project manager, and every time I get a cover, I go into Get Covers and I say, hey, this is what I want to do. These are the covers that have been created for me, and I attach all of them. And then I say, I would like to work with this designer again. And then whoever is in charge of that designer that week will be the project manager over my work. Okay, so let's see. Do you dress back covers and spines in your videos? Yvette, so I have not gone over print layout in my videos. I can probably make that a priority. The biggest thing with doing print layout is just understanding that every single group, whether it's KDP or Kobo or Barnes & Noble, Ingram Spark, what have you, Book Vault, they all have their own files that you will need to download from them. So you'll go in and you'll say, my book is this size. I'm doing this, this page count with this paper option. And then they will say, okay, based on all of that, this is the layout that you'll use, and they'll give you a PDF file and a JPEG file, usually those two, to put your cover on. And then you're literally just going to build your cover on top of that. Now, if you're working with a designer, then you'll go through and make sure that the designer knows that information, and the designer will actually go on to every single distributor that you're paying them to create a file for. And you will usually pay for each file to be created. So like at Get Covers, I think it's $5 for every print file that you want. So it's $5. So if you get their full package, one print file is included in that, and you can pick which one it is. So if you pick that it's Amazon KDP, then they'll make that one as part of your package, and then you can come back and say, okay, well, now I want to put it up on Ingram Spark, or I want to put it up on Book Vault, or whatever it is. Then you'll go to them and say, all right, I want to do another print file, and they'll say, great, here's the link to pay us the $5 for you to get that other print file. Let's see, I missed one. Right, did you provide all of the elements for these covers? Okay, so Kay Riley asks, did I provide all of the elements for the covers, including the shells, the starfish, and other embellishments? In my mock-up, I had stars or starfish and shells and things on there. I didn't specify which ones I wanted. I just made sure in the mock-up it was obvious that that's what I wanted. The mermaid tail, I did specify. The mermaid tail, I sent them. I said, this is the one I want. And the swords. I was very specific that I wanted those cross swords. I wanted that mermaid tail. Everything else I let up to them, and they went through and they probably just picked a Shutterstock package of shell graphics and went from there. Let's see. So how does one create a mockup? Easiest way, go into Canva. Tell Canva that you want to do an ebook cover, and click on it, and it will give you the shape for an ebook cover. And then Canva has a whole bunch of images, and guess what? It doesn't matter if you send the designer a file that has all of the Canva watermarks over it. Pick anything you want. It doesn't matter, because they're not actually going to use those images. They're going to go through and just look at it as a reference and say, oh, okay, I need this, I need that. They want these things. So don't worry about, well, I don't pay for Canva. It doesn't matter. Whoever you're sending this to design it for you, they don't need to have the images or have it be a pretty picture. It's a mock-up. And so you're going to do your best to recreate to create your cover using all of those elements you saw in your market research. So you're going to pick the fonts that are going to look the most like what you saw in your market research, the colors that look the most like what you saw in your market research, the layout like you saw in your market research. Is the text at the top? Is the text at the bottom? Where is it at? That kind of thing. Let's see. Canva released a free AI program yesterday, reach from login page. So have you ever used a language model for a cover? So I've never used a language model for a cover. I think or language models are an awesome way to create your layout. If you're not finding your mock-up, if you're not finding the images you want, then jump into a language model and say, I need a dog that looks like he's unhappy. Like, I need this thing. Please get me this thing, because it's your mock-up. And if you choose, Joanna Penn has amazing information on how to, and Kevin, Wordslinger podcast. Darn it, Kevin McLaughlin? Nope, that's not him either. That's someone else. There's too many Kevins. He's part of the Wordslinger podcast. Let's see. But he has really great information too on using AI to create your covers. If you do decide to do that, Tumlinson, there we go. Betty Jo knows. Kevin Tumlinson. Kevin Tumlinson has great information on using AI to create your covers. The best advice I've heard, because everybody that does it that I know all comes back to this, is don't have it put the title on, and tell it it's creating a movie poster, not a book cover. So don't have it put any text on, and tell it it's creating a movie poster, not a book cover. And that makes a big difference in getting better results. Let's see. wondering how to decide which images or how many to include on the back cover. Your back cover, let me pull up a back cover here really quick. Where is my back cover for Dryads? Come on. There we go. Okay, let me share this so you can get an idea. So your back cover should consistently have lots of space to be able to put all of the text on and have it be legible. So you can see here that I had them let the tree image in the background continue, and the smoke overlay that they used to go on top of it. It's either a smoke overlay or another tree overlay. I'm actually not sure, and I haven't opened up the Photoshop file to find out. But you want lots of space because you want them to be able to get your text on there and have it be legible and nice. And also, this is where your barcode is going to go. And so you don't actually have a lot of space on your back cover. So I'm always of the opinion that the less is more when it comes to the back cover for print. Because if someone is going to be picking this book up off of a bookshelf, like if you're specifically going print to get into a local bookshop, then you're going to want to make sure that you are making it very easy for them to read what your book is about. So we want to make the words the most important thing. Remember, your book cover is there to communicate an experience so that people will read, whether it's read the back cover or whether it's read the inside. We want to make reading easy. Okay, let's see. Any working with Canva AI feature? It's new last year. So the Canva AI feature, Wilder, is new. They announced it this year. They like last week or Tuesday or something. Like it's very, very new. It's not a new thing. What about if your book is a biography? So if your book is a biography, then there are cover trends for that. There are very specific cover trends for that. The ones I can think of off the top of my head, if you are a famous person, your picture. If you are a less famous person, text specific covers. So covers that focus on the typography that are going to, that text-based cover is where you're probably going to end up. But do your market research. Amazon does have biographies on it. And so going through that is going to help you if you're right. Or I guess the autobiography is if you're the famous person. But yeah, either way, if it's a famous person, the picture of the person is very common. And if it is a person who is less famous, then you're going to go with text-based covers. Okay, we are quickly running out of time. Is there anything that I didn't cover that anybody wants to throw into the chat or come off of mute and ask? Either is great. Let's see, different fonts reflect moods, but I can't really get that. Any advice? I have an entire video on it, Yvette. I have an entire video about font psychology and telling you which is which. So I would jump onto that because that video is like 30 minutes long and I cut it down. I'm giving you all of the stuff that I learned in design school and trying to make it apply to book covers and trying not to make it be hour-long lectures like I sat through, because the hour and 2 hour long lectures, I don't think you want those. So they're a lot of fun. Wilder, I went to Southern New Hampshire University. Excellent. Hey. Well, cool. Thank you all so much for coming and listening to me talk about how much fun I have with that. See, I think I saw, let's see, when will the video post? Kristina,
Oh,
that's a you question. That's not a
yeah,
me
I have
question.
to it'll get processed, so it'll be a couple of days. Depends on what's in line, but it should be within the next couple of days.
Mhm.
Elaine,
Oh,
that was
cool.
fabulous. Kind of fun to see my cover up there. I did use Gemini to get the pictures of the wolves and the dogs, and Elaine made a little joke of make the dog look serious because the first one was a really happy golden retriever, and that just didn't suit at all. I'm like, could you make it look more serious? And now I'd like it to be wet. Could you make it wet too? And so it was kind of fun playing around with it to come up with something. And then I put it in Canva in the actual ebook format and put the cover on. So all I did was play with Gemini saying, I want cedar trees in the background. Now I'd like it to be snowing over top of those cedar trees. Now, and it just keeps adding until I thought, that's pretty good. What do I know? Put it in Canva. And then I send it to Elaine. What do you think?
It's a great mock-up. You could send that to any designer, and I think you'd be able to get a really
You know,
fantastic looking book cover.
that'll be the next step. But like you say, even the draft is blurb, or is blurb. The blurb is a draft, right? And so that needs to get settled down a little bit more before we get that far. But I'd like to have some kind of image now in the process. I just find it motivating and fun, and I don't know.
And it's fun for readers too. So if you do create a mock-up, share it with your readers, share it on your newsletter. Like
Mm,
use that as a marketing opportunity to say, hey, look, I'm brainstorming cover ideas. This is my mock-up. I'm not a designer, but I'm trying to put together something to give to my designer. And then show your readers your mock-up and have fun with it. Because that's like it's if you're creating a book cover, that means that you're probably almost done or are done with a book. That's amazing. So have
except in
fun.
my case, where I'm doing the whole process backwards just so I can share it all. But that's okay. Whatever. It's fine. It'll work itself out. So everybody will see an email in a couple of weeks. We're trying to put out book emails on Saturdays for Elaine's new upcoming book. So it'll be kind of close to her release date, but probably not exactly on the release
That's
date,
just
but
fine.
it'll be out there. So thank you, Elaine. That was fabulous. Wealth of information. Really appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with us and helping everybody in the community get a little bit of a grasp on book covers.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, everybody.